The war was finally over, but peace did not feel real. The humans had won a small victory, yet both sides carried deep scars. Cities were broken, ships were gone, and families were missing loved ones. The aliens, proud and cold, had agreed to a treaty, but not without punishment. They wanted to show that even their own people would suffer for failure. And so, one evening, a strange ceremony took place in front of a silent human crowd. At the center of the hall stood a single alien girl, her hands chained with glowing cuffs. Her skin was pale silver, her hair dark like night, and her eyes burned with anger. She was young, but her face carried the pride of her entire race. Behind her, alien guards stood tall, their weapons ready. Their voices sharp. The alien leader raised his hand, his voice deep and cruel. "This girl has broken our command. She refused to obey during the war," he said. "For that, she will not be killed, but she will live in shame. She will be given to a human man, not as wife, not as friend, but as slave. She will serve him until her last day, and her name will be forgotten." Gasps filled the human side of the hall. Some whispered in shock, others frowned in silence. Even the human commander looked uneasy, but the alien leader only smiled coldly. Enjoying the humiliation, the chosen human was a soldier named Daniel. He had fought hard in the war, but he never asked for reward. His eyes were tired, his heart heavy. He did not want a slave. He did not want an enemy in his home. Yet the council forced him. "This is the punishment. This is the peace," they said. Daniel stepped forward, his boots heavy on the stone floor. The girl lifted her head, her silver eyes burning into his. There was no fear in her look, only hatred. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "You are not my master," she whispered. Daniel said nothing, only nodded. He knew there was no choice. When the ceremony ended, the alien guards left her in his hands. The chains clicked open, but the cuffs glowed still. A mark of shame, impossible to remove. The girl stood tall, refusing to bow, refusing to show weakness. Daniel sighed. Turning toward the door, "Come," he said, his voice low. The girl did not move. He turned back, meeting her eyes again. "You can hate me all you want, but we both are prisoners here," he said. For the first time, her eyes flickered with surprise. The walk to Daniel's home was silent. The city around them was dark. Broken walls and cracked streets told stories of battles past. Children stared from windows. Soldiers whispered. A human man with an alien slave. It was a strange, cruel sight. The girl kept her head high, as if daring the world to laugh at her. But inside her chest, her heart beat fast. She had promised herself never to bend to humans, never to show weakness. When they reached his small house at the edge of the town, Daniel opened the door. The home was simple. One bed, one chair, one table. The girl stepped inside slowly, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "This is where you live." "A cage for two," she said coldly. Daniel ignored her words, placing his rifle on the wall. "You can sleep on the bed," he said. Her eyes widened. "You want your slave to sleep where you sleep. How weak are you?" Daniel sat in the chair, leaning back, his face calm. "I don't care about slaves," he answered. "I care about peace." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The girl crossed her arms, her pride unbroken. She hated him. She hated this punishment. She hated her own people for giving her away. But deep inside, a strange feeling grew. This man was not what she expected. He did not strike her. He did not mock her. He did not call her slave. Instead, he looked tired, lonely, and strange. Almost human. Night fell. The air grew cold. Daniel lit a small lamp, its glow soft on the walls. The girl sat by the window, staring at the stars. Her chains glowed faintly, a reminder of her shame. She whispered to herself in her alien tongue, "I will never belong here. I will never bow." But in her heart, she wondered, why did this man treat her with such calm? Why did he not hate her? Outside, the wind howled across the broken city. Inside, two enemies sat in silence, not knowing that their story had only just begun, not knowing that hate would soon turn into something else, and not knowing that this punishment would change the fate of both races forever. The first night passed in silence. Daniel slept in his chair with his boots still on, his head leaning back. The alien girl sat near the window, eyes wide open, watching the stars fade into dawn. She did not sleep. She could not. Her heart was still burning with anger, her mind sharp with plans. Every second she told herself, "I will not be his slave. I will not bow." When the morning sun touched the small house, Daniel stood up. His back ached from the chair. But he said nothing. He boiled some water, made weak human tea, and placed a cup on the table. The girl did not move. He looked at her and spoke calmly. "You should drink something." She narrowed her eyes. "I don't take orders from humans," she said, her voice cold as steel. Daniel shrugged, sipping his own cup. "Then don't. It makes no difference to me." The calmness in his tone made her even more restless. He was supposed to shout, to command, to remind her she was a slave, but he didn't, and that made her feel lost. Later that day, Daniel left to gather supplies from the ruined market. The girl followed him silently, her steps light but proud. People in the street stared. Some whispered cruel things, some laughed, some simply watched with wide eyes. The sight of a human soldier walking with an alien slave was strange. Daniel ignored the whispers, but the girl felt every word like a knife. Her pride was her armor, so she lifted her chin higher. "Let them stare," she thought. "I will never break." At the market, Daniel traded for bread and dried meat. The girl stood apart, her eyes darting around. She saw human children pointing at her. Their laughter sharp, she clenched her fists, ready to strike back. But then, out of nowhere, 3 rough men stepped from the shadows. Their clothes were torn, their eyes cruel. One of them smirked. "Look what we have here." "The human pet," he said. They circled her, mocking. The girl's body tensed. Her alien blood boiled with rage. Before she could fight, Daniel appeared, his fist landing hard on the first man's jaw. The thug collapsed. The others cursed. And after a short scuffle, they ran away. The girl stared at Daniel in shock. "You fought them? For me?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Daniel picked up the bread that had fallen and brushed it off. "You were with me." "That's enough reason," he said simply. The girl turned away quickly, hiding the strange warmth that touched her chest. It was the first time a human had defended her. That night, the house felt different. The girl still sat by the window, but her eyes were softer, less full of hate. She watched Daniel mend his old jacket, his hands steady but tired. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter than before. "Why didn't you let them hurt me? I am your punishment, not your friend." Daniel looked up, his face unreadable. "I don't see you as punishment. You didn't start the war. You're just stuck in it, like me." Her breath caught for a moment. His words were strange. They made her feel seen, and she didn't like it. She turned her face away, whispering, "You are still human. You are still my enemy." Daniel only nodded. "Maybe, but enemies can still share the same roof without killing each other." The days that followed were filled with tension. The girl refused to cook, refused to clean, refused to follow any command. Sometimes she threw sharp words at Daniel, testing him, but he never raised his hand, never raised his voice. Instead, he treated her like a person. It confused her. It broke the image she carried of humans. At night, she whispered to herself, Why does he act this way? Why doesn't he hate me? One evening, as the wind howled outside and the lamp flickered, Daniel caught her trying. To force open the back window, she froze when she saw him standing there. "I knew it," he said softly. Her face burned with shame. But her pride refused to bow. "I will never stay here. I will find my way back to the stars," she said. Daniel sighed, walking past her and locking the window. "Maybe one day you will, but not tonight. The world outside is not safe, for you or for me." His calm words struck her again. He wasn't angry, he wasn't afraid. He was simply tired, and for the first time, she felt a small, unwanted ache in her chest. The ache of understanding. On the 5th day, something unusual happened. Daniel left bread on the table for her before going out. She hesitated, glaring at it as if it were poison, but hunger won, and she ate. When Daniel returned, he said nothing, only gave her a small nod. She looked away quickly, but her heart betrayed her with a quiet beat of respect. The strange days continued, a mix of silence, pride, and hidden curiosity. The alien girl and the human soldier were still enemies. Yet the line between them was no longer clear. She began to wonder if chains could be more than punishment. Perhaps they were also a link, tying her fate to his in ways she did not yet understand. And as the stars returned each night, she watched them with new eyes, her heart whispering questions she had never dared to ask before, questions that would soon change everything. Days turned into a strange rhythm inside Daniel's small house. The alien girl, still proud, still defiant, no longer threw sharp words at him every hour. Instead, she sat quietly most days, watching him with eyes that hid 1,000 questions. Daniel noticed the change, but he never forced her to speak. He gave her space, gave her silence, and sometimes that silence felt louder than war. One night, when the lamp glowed soft against the walls, Daniel saw something unusual. The girl's wrist, usually hidden under her long sleeves, slipped into. The light across her pale silver skin was a mark, deep, burned, and cruel. It looked like a brand, a permanent scar. Glowing faintly with alien symbols, Daniel frowned, but said nothing. The girl quickly pulled her sleeve down, her eyes sharp. "Don't look," she hissed. Her voice trembled though, a rare crack in her pride. Daniel raised his hands slowly. "I won't ask." "Not until you want to tell me," he said. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her heart fought against her mind. Why didn't he demand answers? Why didn't he use the mark to mock her, to remind her she was broken? Humans were supposed to be cruel, yet he wasn't. The confusion burned inside her, making her restless. The next day, Daniel went out to gather wood. The girl stood alone in the quiet house, her fingers brushing over her hidden scar. Memories rose like ghosts, painful and sharp. She remembered the alien council chamber, the voices of her own people shouting, "You defied the commander. You disobeyed a direct order in war." She had stood tall, even then, her voice fierce. "I will not kill innocents. That is not honor. That is slaughter." But her courage became her downfall. Her own leaders had branded her with the mark of shame. Her punishment was not death, but exile, given to the humans as a slave. Her people wanted her forgotten. Erased, the memory made her chest ache with anger and sorrow. That evening, when Daniel returned, she surprised herself. She spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You saw the mark." Daniel looked at her, his face calm, waiting. She clenched her fists, her pride fighting against her need to speak. Finally, the words broke free. "My people gave me that," she said. "They called me a traitor because I refused to follow their order. They told me I was weak, unworthy. And so they burned me with this shame and handed me to you." Her words hung heavy in the air. Daniel sat down, listening without a word. She expected him to laugh, to sneer, to call her weak. Instead, he only asked, "What order did you refuse?" Her eyes glistened with pain. They wanted me to destroy a human colony, a place with children, with families. I refused. I told them it was not war, it was murder. For that, I was punished. Silence filled the room. The only sound was the faint crackle of the small fire in the corner. Daniel finally spoke, his voice steady. "Then you are not weak. You are stronger than all of them. Because you chose what was right." The girl froze, her breath caught. No one had ever said those words to her, not even her own people. Her heart trembled. Her pride cracked for a moment. She looked at him not as enemy, not as master, but as something different, something human. Tears threatened to rise in her silver eyes, but she turned away quickly. "I don't need your pity," she said sharply. Daniel shook his head. "It's not pity, it's respect." That word respect echoed inside her like a forgotten song. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the floor. She had been given as a slave, marked as a traitor, but here, in this small, broken house, a human soldier had given her something her own people never had: respect. The next day, her behavior shifted, just slightly. When Daniel placed bread on the table, she did not refuse. When he fixed the broken door, she handed him tools without being asked. When he spoke, she listened. Though she never admitted it, it was a small change, almost invisible, but it was there. At night, she sat by the window, as always, staring at the stars, but this time, her thoughts were not only about escape, they were also about him. About his calm voice, his steady eyes, his strange kindness. She whispered to herself in her alien tongue, "Why do I feel this? Why does his voice stay in my mind?" She still told herself she hated him, still told herself he was the enemy, but deep inside, a new truth was being written, a secret even she was afraid to admit. The human man was no longer just her jailer. He was becoming something else, and, though neither of them knew it yet, the hidden scar on her wrist was not only a mark of shame, it was the beginning of a bond that would change everything. The days after her confession felt different. The silence inside the house was no longer heavy with hate. It was softer now, almost curious. The alien girl still sat near the window most nights, her arms wrapped around herself. But when Daniel moved about the room, her eyes followed him quietly. She tried to hide it, yet she watched every word he spoke, every small action. She noticed, one morning, Daniel placed a pot on the small stove. The smell of warm broth filled the room. The girl wrinkled her nose, curious despite herself. "What is that?" she asked, her voice sharp but less cold. "Soup," Daniel answered. Stirring slowly, she tilted her head. "Humans eat water with vegetables." "Strange," Daniel smirked, the first hint of a smile on his tired face. "Strange, maybe, but it keeps you alive." He poured some into a bowl and set it in front of her. She glared at it, refusing at first, but hunger gnawed at her pride. She took one sip, then another. Her eyes widened in surprise. It does not taste terrible," she admitted reluctantly. Daniel chuckled softly. "That's the nicest thing you've said since you arrived." For the first time, she felt her lips twitch into a small smile. She quickly hid it, turning away. But Daniel had seen it. He didn't say anything, but inside, he felt something shift too. The days grew longer, and Daniel began teaching her small things: how to cut wood, how to light a fire, how to cook bread without burning it. She pretended not to care, rolling her eyes at his instructions, but in secret. She tried hard to get it right. One evening, when she finally baked bread that wasn't black at the edges, Daniel bit into it and nodded. "Not bad," he said. The girl crossed her arms. trying to look unimpressed. Of course, not bad. I learned fast, but inside, warmth bloomed in her chest. No one had praised her in years. At night, they sometimes sat in silence. Daniel fixing his old jacket, the girl tracing invisible lines on the table. The silence no longer felt like a cage. It felt almost safe. She hated to admit it, even to herself. But she was beginning to enjoy these small, quiet moments. One night, a storm rolled across the city. The roof rattled, the wind screamed. Rain hammered the walls. The girl flinched at a loud crack of thunder. Daniel noticed. "You've never heard a storm like this?" he asked. She shook her head, her voice low. "On my world, the sky burns with light, not sound. This is different." Daniel moved closer to the window, showing her how the lightning split the clouds. Different doesn't mean bad. He said gently. Her silver eyes reflected the light for a moment. She whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe not bad. Just strange." Slowly, the gap between them narrowed. She began asking small questions. "Why do you fight for humans? Do you have family? Do you believe in war?" Daniel answered each one, never hiding, never lying. He spoke of his brother. Lost in battle, of his parents who lived far away. He admitted he hated war, fought because he had no choice. The girl listened. Her heart caught between sorrow and respect. For the first time, she saw him not just as human, but as a man with pain. Like her, yet fear never left her completely. One evening, she whispered, "If my people find me with you, they will kill me, and they will kill you too." Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Then let them come," he said simply. His voice carried no fear, only quiet resolve. The girl's chest tightened. Why would he risk his life for her? A slave? An enemy? The thought kept her awake long into the night. Another day, as they walked near the market, the girl noticed something. Children playing with a broken ball laughed as they ran past. One small boy tripped and fell, scraping his knee without thinking. The girl stepped forward. Her hand glowed faintly, alien energy spilling from her skin. She touched the boy's wound, and within seconds, it closed. The children gasped, staring in awe. The boy whispered, "Thank you," before running off. Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You can heal," he said quietly. The girl lowered her eyes. "Not always. Only small wounds. My people call it useless." "Not strong enough for war." Daniel shook his head. "Not useless. Life-saving." The warmth in his voice shook her deeper than thunder. For the first time, she felt proud of the gift she once called shame. That night, the bond between them felt stronger. They did not speak much, but the air between them carried something unspoken, something fragile, but real. The girl sat by the window, whispering in her alien tongue, her words soft. Filled with confusion, "I am supposed to hate him. So why does my heart not listen?" Daniel, sitting across the room, watched her silhouette against the stars. He did not know her thoughts, but he felt his own heart stir. This alien girl, once chained by hate and shame, was no longer just his punishment. She was becoming part of his life, part of his days, part of his silence. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The bond was still small, still fragile. But it was growing, and soon, the world outside would test it in ways neither of them could imagine. For many days, the small house at the edge of the broken city felt almost peaceful. Daniel worked. The girl watched, sometimes helped, sometimes argued. Their bond was still unspoken, fragile, but real, but peace. In a world scarred by war, never lasted long. It began on a cold evening. When the sun sank behind the ruins and the sky turned red, Daniel was returning from the market with bread in his hands. As he walked, he noticed shadows moving behind him, too quiet, too many. His instincts sharpened, soldiers, but not human ones. When he reached his door, he stopped, his hand gripping the rifle by his side. From the darkness, 3 figures stepped forward, tall, armored, with glowing alien eyes. Her people, inside. The girl felt it before she saw it. Her skin prickled, her heart raced. She stood by the window and whispered in her alien tongue. "They've come." Daniel opened the door calmly, though his heart thundered. The alien soldiers pushed past him without waiting. Their leader's voice was sharp like a blade. "We've come for her," he said, pointing at the girl. "She was not punished enough. She must return with us to face execution." The girl froze, her silver eyes wide. Execution. She had expected it one day, but hearing it now, in Daniel's home, shook her to the core. Daniel stepped between them, his rifle steady. "She's not going anywhere," he said firmly. The soldiers laughed, their voices cruel. "You think you can stop us, human? She belongs to us, not you." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She doesn't belong to anyone." The alien girl's breath caught. His words struck deep. She didn't belong to anyone. Not even him. For the first time, someone had spoken of her. As free, the soldiers moved closer, their hands reaching. The girl felt fear claw at her chest, but Daniel did not move aside. His voice was calm, but sharp as steel. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." Tension filled the room, like fire. The alien soldiers studied him, expecting fear, but Daniel's eyes carried none, only resolve. They knew killing him would spark trouble with humans again. For a moment, silence held, heavy and dangerous. The leader finally sneered. "This is not over. She is a traitor, and traitors always face death. You cannot protect her forever." With that, they turned and left, their shadows melting into the night. When the door closed, the girl collapsed into the chair. Her chest rose and fell fast, her hands trembling. Daniel placed his rifle aside and looked at her. "They'll be back," he said quietly. She stared at him, her voice shaking. "Why? Why did you stand in their way? You could have let them take me. It would be easier for you." Daniel shook his head, his eyes steady. "Easier doesn't mean right." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but words failed for so long. She had believed no one would ever defend her, not her own people, not anyone. Yet here was a human, her enemy, standing against death for her sake. The chain between them no longer felt like punishment. It felt like protection. That night, she couldn't sit by the window. Instead, she stayed near Daniel, her eyes darting toward the door with every sound. He noticed her unease. "Try to sleep," he said softly. She shook her head. "If they come back, I want to be ready." Daniel nodded. "Then we'll be ready together the next day." Rumors spread through the city. People whispered of alien soldiers seen in the streets. Some said they wanted the girl back. Others claimed they wanted war again. Children stared at her more than before, not with laughter, but with fear. The girl felt the weight of every glance, every whisper. Yet Daniel walked beside her calmly, as if her shame and danger were his to share. Later, in the quiet of the house, she finally spoke. "I was ready to die when they gave me to you," she admitted, her voice low. "But you make me wonder if I was wrong. Maybe there is more for me than death." Daniel looked at her, his voice gentle. "There is always more. If you choose to live." Her heart trembled. For years, she carried only pride and pain. Now, she carried something new, something heavy and confusing. Hope, but fear still lingered. She knew her people would not stop. The mark on her wrist burned as if reminding her of the truth. She was still hunted, still unwanted, still a traitor to her own kind. And now, Daniel was caught in the fire with her that night. As the stars glittered outside, she whispered in her alien tongue, "I should run. I should leave him safe." But deep inside, she knew she couldn't. Her heart no longer wanted to run from him. Instead, it wanted to stay. No matter the danger had returned. Sharper than ever, but so had something else, a bond, stronger than chains, and both of them would soon face the storm that bond would bring. The night after the soldiers came, the house felt smaller. Every creak in the wood, every whisper of wind sounded like footsteps outside. The alien girl sat close to the door, her silver eyes sharp, her fists tight. She did not sleep. Daniel sat near the table, cleaning his rifle slowly, his face calm, but his silence carried weight. Both of them knew the truth. Her people would return. For 2 days, nothing happened. The city carried on. Broken walls echoing with the noise of life, yet the whispers spread. Wider, everyone knew alien soldiers were hunting for the traitor girl. And everyone knew she was hiding with a human soldier. Some pitied them, some hated them, some prayed for them. But none dared to stand beside them. On the third night, the storm finally broke. Daniel had just placed his rifle against the wall when heavy knocks slammed the door. The sound shook the small house. The girl froze, her breath sharp. Daniel stood, his hand on the weapon. Then a voice thundered through the wood. "Give her to us, human. This is your last chance." The girl's heart pounded. She knew the voice. The alien commander who once gave the order she had refused, the one who called her weak, the one who marked her wrist with shame, he had come. For her himself, Daniel looked at her, his voice low, steady. "They want you, not me. What do you want to do?" Her eyes widened. He was not forcing her, not commanding her. He was giving her the choice. For the first time in her life, someone let her decide her own fate. Tears stung her eyes. She whispered, her voice trembling, "If I go, they kill me. If I stay, they kill you. How can I choose?" Daniel's eyes softened. "By choosing what your heart wants, not what they want." The door shook again under fists of iron. The commander's voice roared, "Choose quickly, girl, or we burn. This house to ash." The girl stood, her body trembling. She looked at Daniel, the man who treated her not as slave, but as equal. The man who saw strength in her when even her own people called her weak. The man who fought for her without asking anything in return. Her chest ached. Her mind raced. She remembered the boy she healed in the street. The way Daniel called her gift life-saving. The way he said she belonged to no one. Her pride, her shame, her fear, all clashed inside her. But at last she stepped forward, her voice clear. "I will not go back." Daniel's grip tightened on his rifle, but he nodded. Her choice was made. The door burst open with a crash. Alien soldiers stormed inside, weapons glowing. Behind them, the commander entered. His face twisted in disgust. "You dare defy us again." He growled at her. The girl stood tall, no longer hiding her scarred wrist. "I dared once, and I dare again. I will not kneel to murderers, not even to my own blood." The commander sneered, raising his hand to strike, but Daniel stepped in. Front of her rifle raised. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. The commander laughed. "A human defending our traitor." Pathetic, but his smile faded when the girl moved to stand at Daniel's side. Her silver eyes burned with fire. "He is not pathetic. He is stronger than you. Because he fights for more than pride." The soldiers hesitated, shocked at her. Defiance, for a moment, the room held only silence. Then Daniel whispered, "Stay behind me." But she shook her head. "No. We stand together." The battle was short, fierce, and loud. Daniel fired, forcing the soldiers back. The girl raised her glowing hands, not to destroy, but to shield her gift. Once called useless, now bent the air into a barrier of light. The alien commander struck against it, furious. But her will held strong. Her eyes burned as she shouted, "I am not your slave. I am not your traitor. I am free." The commander faltered, stunned by her strength for years. She had been marked weak. Now she stood unbroken, stronger than ever. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uneasy. The commander roared in rage, but the girl's power pushed him back. Finally, he stumbled out of the house, his pride shattered. His words echoed as he left. "This is not the end." When silence returned, the girl collapsed to her knees, her energy drained. Daniel caught her before she fell, his voice soft, steady. "You made your choice." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Yes, I chose you." The words hung in the quiet, simple, but powerful. Her chains no longer felt heavy. Her scar no longer felt shameful. She had chosen her path. Not of her people, not of her punishment, but of her heart. Outside, the night was quiet again. Inside, two enemies stood no longer as master and slave, but as partners, bound by choice. And though danger still loomed, they knew together they could face whatever came. The night after the battle was heavy with silence. The house smelled of smoke. The floor still marked by the clash of weapons. Daniel sat near the broken door, his rifle resting beside him. The alien girl lay on the bed, her energy weak, but her spirit burning brighter than ever. She had chosen, and her choice was him. When morning came, whispers ran through the city like wildfire. Everyone had heard alien soldiers defeated, their commander driven away by a human soldier and the traitor girl together. Some called it madness, some called it bravery. But no one could ignore it. By afternoon, the human council summoned Daniel. They demanded answers, their voices sharp with fear. "You put us all at risk." One shouted, "You protected an enemy." When she should have been returned or executed, Daniel stood firm, his voice steady. "She is not my enemy. She refused to kill when her people ordered her to. She carries more honor than any of them." The council murmured, some furious, some thoughtful. The alien girl stepped forward, her chains still glowing on her wrists. She raised them high for all to see, her silver eyes unflinching. "You call me slave, you call me traitor, but I chose to stand with him, not because I am forced, but because he gave me what my people never did. Respect." The crowd that had gathered outside the hall fell silent. Her voice rang like thunder. She was not just speaking to the council, she was speaking to the city. Even the human commander, who once looked at her with suspicion, shifted uneasily. Then, something unexpected happened. A woman in the crowd shouted, "She healed my child. She saved him when no doctor could." Murmurs spread, more voices rose. "She is not a monster. She is a protector. She is one of us now." The council could not silence the people. For the first time, the girl felt something, she thought. She had lost forever. Acceptance. That night, in the quiet of the house, Daniel sat across from her. "You changed everything today," he said softly. She shook her head. "No, we changed it." Her eyes softened, her voice trembling with a truth she could no longer hide. "I was given to you as punishment, but you never treated me as a slave. You treated me as equal. And now? I don't want to leave, not even if I could." Daniel's chest tightened, his hands trembling slightly. He had fought wars, faced death, stood against armies. But these words from her shook him more than any battlefield. Slowly, he reached for her hand, his rough human fingers brushing against her silver skin. For a moment, she did not pull away. Instead, she let her hand rest in his. Their eyes met, and in that silence, both knew the truth. They were no longer enemies. They were something far greater. Days later, a gathering was held in the city square. Humans and even a few alien deserters came. Curious, watchful, Daniel stood tall, the girl beside him, but this time, no chains bound her wrists. She had broken them herself the night before, her power burning them away. a sign that she was no longer anyone's prisoner. The human commander stepped forward, his voice carrying over the crowd. In times of war, we are divided, but in times of peace, we must find new bonds today. A bond stronger than chains, stronger than fear is before us. The girl looked at Daniel, her heart racing. Her voice was clear, proud. I was given to him as punishment, but I choose to stay as his equal. I choose him not as master, not as jailer, but as partner. If humans and aliens are ever to live in peace, let our choice be the first step. Gasps filled the air, followed by a ripple of voices. Some shocked, some cheering, some crying. Daniel looked at her, his voice low but steady. Then let us not just stand together, let us build together. Will you marry me? Her silver eyes glistened with tears, but her smile broke through like dawn. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The crowd erupted, some in disbelief, others in joy, but no voice could drown the truth now. A human soldier and an alien girl, once enemies, once chained by hate, now stood together in love. Their marriage was simple, but powerful. No golden halls, no rich garments, just a small gathering of people, human and alien. And two hearts bound not by force, but by choice. When the vows were spoken, when their hands joined before the people. It was more than a union of two souls. It was a symbol that enemies could become partners, that punishment could become love, that even in the ashes of war, something new could grow. That night, under the stars, the girl whispered to herself, I was supposed to be forgotten, but instead, I found a place. I found him, Daniel. Standing beside her, looked at her with quiet strength. You are not my slave, not my burden. You are my wife. And together, they walked into a future. Unknown, not as symbols of shame, not as scars of war, but as proof that love could rise from the ruins, and that sometimes the cruelest punishment could become the greatest gift.